morning. Let's give this a minute. See if it's going to. My tech skills, right? Well, there seems to be an awful delay. Okay. Hopefully my audio is working. Maybe we'll give a couple minutes to see if some people pop in. Nope. All right. Loud and clear. Okay. Good to see you. Thank you to those of you who are leaving comments. They're very insightful. There's a reason that I'm doing all of this, and it's hard for me to do and slow, but there is a point to it. How's everybody doing this morning? I'm going to screen a National Film Board movie from 1978. I believe it's 1978. Going by memory. I'm sorry. Hello. And funnily enough, this story will come down your guys' way, at least on the East Coast. So bear with me. Bear with me, please. And as I said, it's not the easiest. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to start with this video and then we'll play it by ear. Please comment as we're going along so that because I'm very interested in knowing. This is it's a different world than a lot of people are used to. Anyway, needless to say, let's move along. Please let me know if the audio comes through okay. Thank you.
You won't even know your own boy when you come home. Shut up. You can tell where his hair is bit. You can tell where his hair is bit.
They come from all parts of Canada. A few are Americans, about 40 in all. Their parents have paid $1,700 to send them here, to a school which believes that only by confronting the wilderness does a boy truly become a man.
Just think, short hair's coming back in. Older than Paul's butt. Yeah.
Right. Enough for you?
Jeez. Man, that looks just fine.
Let us pray. O Lord, show thy mercy upon us.
The staff at St. John's must attend chapel each morning and evening, 7 days a week. They form the Company of the Cross, an Anglican community which provides board and lodging and a salary of $1 a day.
May it please God that these boys coming into a new setting may find strength in Him, that we as their leaders may be granted wisdom to make right judgments, and above all a charity toward all that we have under our control during this period of time, that in what we do we remember that we do to His greater glory. O Lord, hear our prayer.
And let our cry come unto thee.
How do you like that? We're also gonna have some dehydrated raisins.
For the new boys, the school year begins with a canoe trip. It will follow a centuries-old trading route and take about 2 weeks. When they return, classes will begin.
Be sure that you look after yourself. That is, that you look after your stuff. Because so often we're used to Mummy taking care of our clothes, or Mummy making sure we remember our books for school. All the things that Mummy used to remind us of are now going to fall on your shoulders. For if your ground sheet is left behind at a campsite and you come to the next one and it's raining, you're going to have a very uncomfortable night. The bus is here already. You will get on that bus with all your gear, and you will travel.
Each fall for 15 years now, Headmaster Frank Weems has been sending a new batch of boys out into the wilderness. He says his purpose is to toughen up their moral fiber through meeting a challenge, through hard work, discipline, obedience.
Canoes. I'll be seeing you probably at Pointe du Bois, hopefully, where your first food drop will be. And I want to see fellows who have taken up the challenge that St. John's expects of boys.
Be present, O Lord, with the men and boys now setting forth from us on this expedition. May they amid hardships find their strength in Thee and their joy in serving one another. Bring them safely through difficulties and dangers, so that we with them may join in giving thanks for Thy mercies, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. You're come here to ask God's blessing and protection upon your expedition. Whether or not you've been accustomed to turn to God, for many of you, there will be constant occasions to do so in the days ahead, and for all of you from time to time. And it is to ask for the strength that you will need that we offer our prayers now. Stand, please, and we will say together the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive them that trespass against us.
60 strokes a minute, 3,600 strokes an hour, 43,000 strokes a day. 30 miles behind them, 300 to go.
Bring whatever wood you've got and then go get set up. Lots of firewood. Check down towards the river and you'll see stuff lying in those spruce trees.
They will stop only to eat and sleep. From the first day out, a push is on to get back to the school as fast as possible.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive them who trespass against us.
Okay, boys, let's go. Time to get up.
When the new boys return to school after the canoe trip, their day will begin at 7 each morning. There is no maintenance staff at St. John's. Students are the labor force that keeps the school operating. Each boy must put in 8 hours a day of classes in study hall, 3 hours a day on a work crew. He will learn how to prepare food, wash dishes and clothing, how to paint buildings and fix anything that breaks down, how to clean classrooms and toilets and dormitories.
I'm gonna have to use a corn broom in these corners. Now.
The new boy will also be introduced to a St. John's custom known as swats.
Okay, boys, let's go. Time to get up. Come on, get into that knuckle, babe. Go.
Mr. Arthur,
What?
do you know if Mr. Kleinhaus is up?
Yes, he's up.
Do you know if he has any painkillers?
You'll have another crane to kill if you don't get out of that sleep train.
Okay, boys, get off your asses and get up.
I'm just putting my shoes
Get
on.
up. Stand up. You too. On your feet.
A week has passed. The boys have paddled more than 150 miles. They are halfway home.
Who's gonna be last? You guess it. Hurry up. Come on, hurry.
Come on, boys, let's go.
John West, okay, get that John West loaded. We're moving out. Okay, swing your hand around. Swing it around. Right.
Hey, watch it.
Even pace.
Hello, guys.
Swing left, Fox.
Come on.
Left, Fox. Left. Okay, turn onto the pavement and head to the right. Come on.
Go down.
Hang on up there, Richardson. Get your shoulder into it.
Okay, take it easy going down here. It's okay, Birdie. Okay, Bedard, we doing it? Okay, take it easy, guys. Don't fall. Come on. Just keep on going.
Line up over here. Okay, seconds on porridge.
Yeah, no, he fell. Poor kid. You know, I'd love to get out of this school. Right on, right on.
Good, strong hot chocolate here. Come and get your good, strong hot chocolate.
Okay, Keegan, you're doing the hot chocolate pot. Who's gonna do the porridge pot? Somebody who's done right now. Who's finished right now?
Ryan! Nordall.
Robertson! Get out here!
Okay, Keegan, get that canoe loaded then. Let's get going.
LaFontaine, get your hand out of that sleeve.
Look, you guys, with the new types of sleeping bags, they seem to be a lot more flammable, so keep them back a little bit. We've already had to sew one up.
Who'd they sew up?
Wasn't it yours?
They never sewed it
No,
up.
they never sewed it. Well, that's life.
At home, I do about 3 things. Eat, sleep, and play pool. We're gonna need some more rocks.
Okay, who needed Nivea?
Sir? You anything for shoulders?
Pardon?
Anything for the shoulder?
No.
Have some Nivea, sir?
Yep.
Where is Mr.
Try to
Williams?
keep those dry and they'll heal better. Anybody else for first aid? Yep.
I was carrying it, let me see, a couple of times in the portages, but like today I helped them up with a little stuff like that. Other than that, I was carrying the packs.
Well, that's what I say. 4 guys can carry one of those. You know, it's just a matter of making up your mind to do it.
I can't carry anything.
Sir, my legs are gonna give out. Get the canoe straightened out.
We'll go right down here now. Slow, Will.
No, not down there.
Well, where are we gonna put it down? Turn around!
Fox, turn around! Yourself, not the canoe.
No. There we are.
Yes?
Fine. My legs are gonna give out hard crap. Your legs aren't gonna give out. Yeah, they're wobbly and everything.
Come on.
Get going! Get on your shoulders, Gordon!
Swing to your left.
Left?
Left.
Jingle bells, jingle bells, jingle bells. Ah! Match.
Holy Jesus!
We're making it. What do you know? Man, you gotta try this early in the morning. First thing. Here it goes. Here it goes.
Thanks. Who did that?
Shut up.
And someone's complaining about me.
I didn't collapse, okay?
Yeah, I almost collapsed twice back there, so just shut up. Come on, you guys. You can carry that darn thing.
Come on, you guys, get it out.
Speak for yourself.
I didn't collapse. I slid, okay?
Didn't collapse, just slid. Yeah, sure.
Then we all carry the same weight, huh? 1 quarter, 1 quarter, 1 quarter. You got the same weight, I got the same weight, he's got the same weight, he's got the same weight. Now you're bigger than I am, and you're bigger than he is, and you're bigger than he is.
to this trip with
Then why the hell can't you carry that part, huh?
Just get the
Then we all have to go down hills, we all have to go up hills. You got the same part, we got the same part, everything. It's all the same.
backwards, upside down. Okay, get the pack, set them up there.
Well, I can't lift nothing else. Jesus.
You guys, hold it up. Keep it up. You guys, get those duffel bags.
Come on, lift.
Get that ball up. Pull the ball up. Pull. Lift on it. Come on, lift. Okay.
Just kick. Don't worry, we'll take care of it.
Okay, where you go, run, get warmed up. Rub your hands together, put them in your armpits or your crotch.
Cold.
Okay, away you go. Move out, that's it.
What can I help?
Got all of that. 1, 2, 3, your shoulders. Come on, up. Shoulder in there, boy. All right, forward now, march. Watch out, okay, straight up by that building. Keep right on going, you'll get better footing. Okay, keep going. Right across the road.
Point of blood. God. And then,
Hook yourself in front of the car. End it off.
yeah. I fell in. Where? Just getting off. What are you doing, You fell in. Huh? You fell in.
Yeah, come on.
Just jumped out of the boat. We said to jump out of the boat.
Come on, boys, let's go! Come on, Benson, get on here.
Come on! Okay, give way hard. Let's go. Right here, give way hard. Come on. Both sides, give way. Come on, pull. Give way harder. You're walking up your armpits in this slop. Pull. Come on. Pull it. Pull it, push it, pull it, get it through.
Come on, you guys. You guys are holding us back and we're pulling it this way.
Let's go.
Give way. Together. Go.
Get that arm up. Do some work.
LaFontaine, get a grip on your paddle. Get it out of that sleeve.
And we ended up getting windbound at Grand Beach. Then from Grand Beach, we came here.
You cold?
Fairly,
You wet?
yes.
How come you're wet?
Our canoe leaks. Oh, so cold.
I didn't find missing.
Cold?
Freezing.
How'd you get cold?
Whole hand was frozen.
When?
When I was canoeing.
What about peanut butter, man?
What's the day been like today?
Well, pretty rough. We got to bed at 1:30 yesterday.
Yeah, and we got up at
Paddling all
6.
night.
We were up to around 12:30 last night paddling.
Okay, boys, line up for hardtack. If you want honey, line up on this side. If you want peanut butter, line up on this side. Take a piece of hardtack.
Give me a piece. One piece. One piece.
What I do for a knife?
First on Pram. Let's go.
Oh.
The Red River, 10 miles from school. It has taken them 13 days. In the winter, there will be snowshoe runs every weekend. Next spring, the boys will take another canoe trip. It will cross 55 portages, cover 900 miles.
Now, boys, maybe some of you can recall when you left here on this canoe trip that I told you that it would be a challenge, that there would be hard times, that there would be demands made on you that maybe you had never had made before. You know, this is one of the reasons why we have to do some of these things. This is one of the reasons why so much of life has to be experienced to be understood. Anybody can fight a good battle. When you've got everything in your favor, when you've outmanned the enemy 10 to 1, a battle is not very hard. But oh, what a change when things are all against you. When everything is against you, and your problems multiply. And then it's tougher to hang on and stick with a task or do it. It's a tremendous lesson for us to see. That's when we see who's got the guts. So this is a battleground, sort of mock battleground, where you can test yourself.
Almighty God, who art the strong tower of defense unto thy servants in time, we yield thee praise and hearty thanks for our deliverance from the dangers which lately encompass us. And we beseech thee still to continue thy mercies towards us, and we may always acknowledge thee as our Savior and mighty deliverer, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Remember those particular occasions on the trip for which you have cause to be thankful, and think about them and be thankful. And remember to whom you should be thankful for them, eh? The opportunity that you received. Okay, boys. Go to lunch.
All right, boys, I'm going to call the roll and answer sir to your name, please, loud and clear. Rolliman, 2. Here. LaFontaine, 2. Mulrew.
Sir.
Perry.
Sir.
Richardson. Vardy.
Sir.
Nanji.
Sir.
Jones. Jones.
He's
He's
in the
still with
job.
Mr. Jackson, I suppose. Warmersley. Hart 2. Ryan.
Sir.
Fort.
Sir.
Nordahl.
Sir.
Keegan 2.
Sir.
Marks.
Sir.
Pollock 2.
Sir.
Robertson 3.
Sir.
Mahan.
Sir.
Granger.
Sir.
Gildert.
Sir.
Fox. Bedson. Bedard.
So looking back here at some of your comments, hopefully I'm doing the tech stuff right. I appreciate your comments. I want to hear what you guys are seeing. So I'm going to read you a couple of articles. Sorry, I'm just looking back here. It's how real men were raised. Canoeing like that builds the body and spirit, says Nova Scotia citizens. They don't want kids to be raised like that. Are you guys familiar with this school that they're talking about? It's very different. Anyway. Good to see you guys. Concan, Tracy, Nova Scotia citizen, Donna. Blue Nose, Bruce, Glenn, Steve. Never heard of him. Okay. Where am I looking here? I guess I got to do this. I got to remove that, right? Delete that. People are so speedy and good with this stuff. I'm not the best. Where did I put that? There. I'm very tempted to get into that, but I won't for now. I'm going to read two articles, somewhat, they're somewhat similar, but there's excerpts that are different in each. All right. I should grab my glasses maybe. Well, maybe we'll try without it. Share screen. I can't see comments on this thing. Toughest school in North America. Give me a moment, please. Most of you have kids. Most of you were kids once. Again, please keep in mind toughest school in North America. This is from the Vancouver Sun, 1968. That's the opinion of St. John's Cathedral. Oh, Grampies. That's the opinion of the headmaster of St. John's Cathedral School. And he makes sure his boys are not pampered. The table stands in a cluttered little room outside the headmaster's office. Across its battered, scarred top, someone has scribbled the word in chalk and large capital letters, suffer. Whoever worked that chalk knew what he was talking about. When you go to St. John's Cathedral Boys' School, you suffer. You suffer because suffering, kid, is good for you. It builds character and courage. It makes little men big, big men bigger. You may never win the race, kid, but you will never quit. Never. The school believes it. Your parents believe it. And if you don't like it, too bad. That's what you think. What you think doesn't matter a pinch. That's the way it is in St. John's on the banks of the Red River at Selkirk, about 25 miles northeast of Winnipeg, a private school where suffering is compulsory subject, taught to the tune of a thick stick, a bleak Spartan environment, and very large doses of hard work and challenge. If you have ever been to jail, you might feel right at home at St. John's. It's bleak. Rooms, many of them small, all of them stuffy, are often furnished with hard and crude wooden benches, stuffed chairs that have lost their stuffing, and secondhand tables that wobble. The 110 boys attend classes in blue jeans and drab pullovers and pad around indoors in socks that are rarely two of a kind. They are, in the words of the school administrators, quote, withdrawn from all comfort and artificial security of the life around home, end quote. They are never pampered. Nobody gives a hoot whether or not they are understood. They are here only to be trained, not to be understood. You worry about their health and the things they are learning and the kind of men they are going to be someday. You don't worry about their happiness. A St. John's boy is not treated like an adult. Only fools do that. At St. John's, you do not consult youth. Who cares what views youth hold on any subject, especially the subjects of youth? Of what possible significance could these views be? The following is from the school's 1966 report. Quote, after all, youth makes little contribution to society, far less than today than it made 50 years ago, when every teenage boy and girl was an indispensable asset to the family farm or the family store. No one would have dreamed of communicating with youth then. So why do it now, when technology has rendered them even less of an asset? Naturally, youth will demand to be heard. This is only healthy and right. It is striving for adulthood, and only an adult generation that has taken all leave of its responsibilities would dream of actually listening, end quote. In other words, kid, at St. John's, you don't know nothing. Today, most modern educators and parents have rejected the St. John's idea of education as primitive, obsolete, naive, unscientific, and barbarous. St. John's administrators could not care less. They believe that our modern world has robbed little Johnny of much of the good things of life, like exhaustion, violence, injury, and the sweet feeling of hard work. They also believe he is robbed of direct contact with physical reality of nature. Too many kids, they say, Think milk comes from a sterile carton. They want him to know about the cow, too. You get all this at St. John's and more. Here, if Johnny feels like a trip he doesn't fly with pot or LSD. You put a paddle in his hand, sit him in a canoe, and make him paddle as much as 1,500 miles. Not kilometers. This is old school. Trained for what? If he feels like another trip, you make him race his pals and the chill of a prairie wind for 50 miles on snowshoes. He should be able to do that in 13 or 14 hours. 80 kilometers. On snowshoes in 13 or 14 hours. Above all, you make him do these things whether he feels like it or not, whether he likes it or not. He doesn't like it, but you don't care because you know it's good for him. St. John's opened for business in 1962 in an abandoned government school for delinquent girls. Okay. That's not quite accurate, but anyway. Accepting boys at the grade 6 level and turning out graduates after grade 12. The boys come from all over North America. Their parents pay slightly more than $1,000 to keep them here. A fee that is low when compared to those charged at other boarding schools. It is low because the boys themselves do all the work. They wash the dishes, scrub the floors, handle much of the maintenance, run a school farm, a butcher shop, and cure their own ham and bacon. 13 Sundays a year, they hit the streets of Winnipeg and sell their produce door to door. Last year, they sold $105,000 worth of meat. The school needs the sales to survive. Quote, but even if we didn't make a cent at it, we would still sell meat, end quote, says Ted Byfield. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Ted Byfield. An ex-Winnipeg newsman who is one of the founders of the school and teaches on the staff. Quote, selling is a great way to build confidence in the boys, end quote. And the boys agree. There is much about St. John's that they detest, but they are proud of their meat products and they enjoy selling. Their roasting chickens, they say, at 69 cents a pound are the best bargains in Winnipeg. The school follows the official Manitoba course of studies, but only to a point. The official program is supplemented so much at St. John's that it is barely recognizable. In short, St. John's administrators believe an average boy can handle about 4 times as much work as required in public schools. At St. John's, he gets it. Where one history textbook is used in most public school grades, St. John's uses as many as 13. Students who can handle the work are started on 4 languages in grade 6. English, Latin, French, and German. If this is too much, a boy can drop German. The French course has been rewritten with a Quebec slant, and grade 11 boys must spend the summer working at jobs the school finds for them in Quebec. A course in logic begins at grade 8. St. John's encourages its students to enjoy and understand the subjects better, they say. For a boy to learn how to think than simply to memorize the right answers, that will get the high marks. The boys get up at 7 a.m. and go to work immediately. Some cleaning dormitories, some feed chickens, some help to prepare breakfast, and after each meal, they scrub down the dining room. In all, they put in 3 hours of chore duty every second day. They get 6 hours of classes and up to 3 hours of supervised study every day. The routine changes once a week when they either snowshoe, paddle, or peddle their meat in Winnipeg. In addition, the school provides the choir for the St. John's Cathedral in Winnipeg. I asked several boys, did they what they did in their spare time? Quote, "What spare time, sir?" they asked. Quote, "And that's the way it should be," says Frank Weems, St. John's headmaster. Weems, 41, has 10 children of his own, 13 years as experience as a teacher in public schools, and arts and education degrees from the University of Manitoba. While a big brown dog slept in the corner of his office, Weems told me how he felt about work, public schools, discipline, and the attitude of young boys towards learning. Quote, "The public school system has been forced to water everything down to a level to the common norm," he said. Quote, "And discipline, or lack of it, is one of the big factors." Quote, "You can't have discipline when so many people think so differently about corporal punishment. Everybody's right today. If you believe in corporal punishment, you are right. If you don't, you are just as right. Where does this all leave the teacher? Nowhere. That's where. He even has to consider whether he might lose his job if he punishes a youngster. How can he teach like that? It's like castrating a stallion and then expecting that he will produce." Continuing, "Well, not here. I believe in discipline. I care enough to believe in it. I love kids. That's why I punish them when they need it. That's right. A stick across the ass when it's needed." And every parent knows this when they send their boy here. When he sends his boy here. What about reason? Can't a teacher reason with a youngster? Quote, "With some of them, you will reason yourself right into your grave," end quote, explains Weems. Quote, "Reason isn't born in us. It is learned from training. Some children work only on pleasure and pain. They have to respect your word. You are the teacher. You know, he doesn't. You show him what he did wrong, but after he does it again, knowing that his action is wrong, you must give him a spanking." Continuing, "A lot of them can come in here thinking that they can damn well do as they please. They do not know the difference between freedom and license. They want me to go around and pick up after them. They can't see far enough ahead to know that they could freeze to death if they forgot their parkas somewhere." Continuing, "If you love him enough, you will tell him of the importance of picking up his clothes and learning mathematics and doing his homework. But if that doesn't work, it is obvious he must learn another way. So you instill a little healthy fear. You spank him on the bottom. They say that's undignified. Well, I say if he went so far to deserve a spanking, you should not worry whether or not the spanking is dignified," end quote. But corporal punishment can be a problem, even at St. John's. Quote, "Some of our teachers don't know how to spank. If you give him a love tap, he will walk out of here laughing. He'll treat it as a joke. You have to know how to use that thing," end quote, he said, pointing to a piece of wood about 18 inches long that was on a table near his desk. Quote, "And it should be used in the coolest way possible," end quote. I mentioned that one of the boys has told me that he's got 89 belts on the bottom with the stretcher so far this year. Where are we at? February. 89. Okay. Where were we here? With the stretcher. 89 belts on the bottom with the stretcher so far this year. Another said he averaged 3 cracks a period. Quote, "That's exactly what I mean," said the headmaster. Quote, "If the teachers were using it properly, that wouldn't be necessary. I don't have to use it very often," end quote. Mr. Weems has strong opinions about stress. "Everyone is too soft today. There is no work for a youngster to do at home. He gets lazy and bored." Quote, "We are born and powdered, and we are buried and powdered. Everything in between is soft. Work is a dirty word in the modern English. Well, we believe that any youngster who doesn't work on occasion to the point of collapse is being sold short by his parents, his teachers, and his country. Sometimes stress tempers steel and people. I'll give you an example." Continuing, "We are driving down the road in the bus with a load of kids. They see a farmer working in a field or maybe unloading manure. I can hear them. And they think that farmer is pretty dumb. A hayseed, what those boys need? They need a pitchfork in their hands. And that's what they get. I take them out to the barn and they shovel manure or straw for 8 hours. I shovel with them. And they are amazed to learn that there is a skill involved. You have to know how to work with that pitchfork or the straw all falls on the floor. When they leave the barn, they have learned something about a pitchfork and something about life too," end quote. I asked Weems if he thought that St. John's qualified as the toughest school in Canada. Quote, "It's the toughest school in North America if by tough you mean the most demanding of its pupils. 1/3 of those who start grade 6 will finish grade 12. We push them to death, grind them into the ground. But we never demand the impossible. What we do is demand a hell of a lot more than they ever thought was possible." End quote. The outdoor program illustrates how St. John's feels about stress. Quote, "Of course they hate it. They aren't supposed to enjoy it. If we see a boy having a good time, we know it isn't tough enough for them. We work him so hard he never sees a tree. He is too busy wallowing in self-pity to ever hear a bird. We want it to be a struggle. We want every muscle in his body crying to give up. We want him hanging on, pushing on, just at the point when he can't go anymore, and he does." Continuing, "If I see a boy isn't carrying his share of the load, I'll make him go back and walk the trail again with his fair share. I'll go with him and expose him to his weakness. Of course, they don't enjoy the canoe trips and snowshoe races. But talk to these kids in 20 years from now, and you'll see the value these challenges," end quote. The school is administered by a partnership of its teachers called the Company of the Cross. All company members, Company of the Cross, proper title, proper noun. All company members, there are 14 of them, receive the same remuneration, room, board, and other necessities for themselves and their families, plus a salary of $1 a day. A nationwide recruiting campaign has been launched to find more. Quote, "They obviously don't come here for the money," end quote, said Weems. "They are here because they believe in what we are doing. I don't want teachers who teach only for a good salary," end quote. The headmaster admitted that 7 of the company members who teach Only 3 are qualified to teach in public schools, but that doesn't bother him a bit. Quote, "Oh, it would be wonderful to qualify all of our people, and we are trying to do that quickly as possible. But it is also possible to have a certificate and be a lousy teacher. I know. On the other hand, many men who don't have a certificate have what it takes to be excellent teachers." That's the kind of people we have here. Ted Byfield isn't qualified, but he is by far the best history teacher I have ever known. Bracket. I sat in on one of Byfield's Canadian history classes and found he made the subject sound like current events. His way of relating the past with the present kept boys interested at all times and made it easy for me to believe the boy who told me, quote, "When I start reading history, I can't stop," end quote. Weems explained that of 18 boys who have graduated from grade 12, all but 2 were qualified to enter university. 11 of them are in university today, and 5 are spending a year in France, quote, "finding out about life and polishing their French." They will be in university next year. Weems is proud and encouraged by his school's academic record. So much so, in fact, that a second school will open next fall at Genesee, Alberta, 45 miles east of Edmonton. But he is equally proud and firm in his belief that he is turning out boys who are not simply learning to adjust to life, but are actually learning to grapple with it effectively. It is true, he will tell you, that St. John's may be a little bit more unkempt than other schools, public or private, but it is also true that St. John's boys do all the cleaning. It is true, he will tell you, that before the boys moved into their new dormitories in the new wing that they helped build, they sometimes got wet on relay nights because they were holes in the old roof. But it is also true that after rainy nights, the boys at St. John's learned how to fix leaky roofs. At St. John's, there is no choice. So we have some interesting pictures. There's Ted Byfield. Defends tough system. It says underneath it. Some boys spend time in the school library. Spare time in the school library. What spare time there is. Sorry. Some boys spend what spare time there is in the school library. At school, all the boys do all the cleaning. Barn duty is chores. One of the chores at St. John's, and all boys pitch in. Brent Wilson of Winnipeg says garbage duty is one of the easier jobs. Ross Lang, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, 13 of Winnipeg, says he enjoys selling meat in his hometown. So there's actually some comments here. This journalist got to talk to some of the boys. What the boys say. The boys at St. John's are seldom consulted, but they do have opinions. Here are some of them. Quote, "Wild horses couldn't get me back here next year." Quote, "Who the hell is going to be thinking of snowshoeing in 20 years? Quote, "You'll never get me near a canoe when I get out of here. Never." Quote, "Canoeing could be great, but not when you get up at 3 a.m. when they get you up at 3 a.m., feed you that grubby porridge, and keep you going until dark. Quote, home was paradise. Quote, it was a challenge for 3 years. Now it's a big bore. Quote, I've been in better places, like public schools. Quote, I've actually seen a guy roll up his pancake into a little ball and bounce it around the dining room floor. Quote, God, I miss peanut butter sandwiches. Quote, they should let us smoke if we have permission from our parents. Quote, 40% of boys smoke in the barn, in the bush, and in the basement. I specialize in the rafters. Quote, St. John's has kept me in school. A lot of my friends are dropouts. I'm going to be a dentist. Quote, the teachers are tough, but good. Quote, I'm a little old to be spanked, don't you think? Quote, sure, I miss girls. If I go out with a girl in the summer, there's a good chance she will only want to go out with me once. I guess I'm a bad boy. Quote, the team that sells the most meat gets to eat a meal at a restaurant in town. And if you don't think that's a good prize, stay here for lunch. Quote, I don't know what's going on in the world. We only watch TV in grade 12, and then it's only the French station. Quote, I told them I wanted to play hockey. They told me to go build a rink. So I play lacrosse. Quote, I don't think anybody really likes it here. Quote, I miss my bicycle. Quote, they spank us, but I guess they are fair. It gets you over the hump, they say. I have to admit, the spanking makes me work. Quote, they make all the decisions for us. Is that good? Quote, I didn't think I could take it, but I found out I can handle just about anything. Quote, where else would I learn to make sausage, raise chickens, smoke hams, and bacon? Quote, I'll send my kids here. They won't like it, but I'll send them. Let's see what some of you guys are commenting here. Hard work builds good character. Nova Scotia 44. Geez, was it a school or Navy SEALs training? Becca Gross. Donna, was it the school that sexually that SA the boys? Yes. That way, if you're referring to what I was putting out, the teacher about, well, I guess I've mentioned two so far, right? Townley, Smith, and Shepherd. There, Concan says there is a fine line between, quote, hard work and, quote, abuse. Responding to Donna, Tara says, there are so many of these boarding schools who the things that you can't do to kids, boys. Yes, the boys. It's ubiquitous. Becca, can only imagine what went on behind the closed doors there. Donna, yes, I agree with you. They did cross the line too much. Nova Scotia citizen, kids need hard work to build resiliency and anti-fragility. Someone who did hard exercise as a kid is likely to less to be fragile. Mentally ill and slaves to corporations and government than they are today. Nova Scotia 44. Gross. Becca, you're a product of your environment. These kids will be messed up for life. Nova Scotia Citizen, kids are messed up for life because they face absolutely no hardship. We have the highest rates of mental illness in history today. They get traumatized by words. Blue Nose, who works for $1? I'm presuming that's what, $1 a day, and why? Tara, Blue Nose, exactly. Imagine the quote compensation. Hello, Linda. Blue Nose, hi Tara. I am one to say this day and age is soft, but that is beyond. Boo Quinn, 007. Hello, howdy. Howdy. Tara, Blue Nose, I totally agree with that. This kind of treatment is the pendulum swinging too far the other way. Now, somebody, I believe that was Donna, made a comment about growing up. So I want to read you another article. I could read you the other one, but I'll leave that for now. So I'll just give you a little context. This appeared in 1999. In 1999, there was a teacher that was charged, St. John's Cathedral Boys School. I won't get into him too heavily. This is the first known article I know where somebody speaks out publicly about the school. Oh, my apologies. I've got the wrong thing going on here. Okay. There was quite a case that evolved in 1999, and there was some. He answered a question that I asked earlier. Maybe it was just missed. I'm not sure. Okay, if I got this right here. Okay. So this appeared in the Winnipeg Free Press. And there was an article that was written by a person by the name of Mike Maunder. And this article came out subsequently. Ex-student recalls pain, not joy. Actually, well, I need to rephrase. There has been a couple of people that have spoken out, yes. But this is certainly the biggest one of all. In terms of giving you a perspective on how the school may have did affect some boys. Ex-student recalls pain, not joy. St. John's was about cruelty for some pupils. 2 weeks ago, the Free Press featured an article in Sunday Magazine on St. John's Cathedral Boys' School. Today, as former students reunite 19 years later after the school closed, this is St. John's Cathedral Boys' School in Winnipeg. Rick Weens writes about his own experiences at the school he attended from 1957 to 1968. I feel I must address the tone and some of the, and again, I would ask you please to think about a boy in your life, a young boy, 13, 12, 8. When I read this, when I'm going through this stuff, think about that boy. Picture him in your head. I feel I must address the tone and some of the issues raised in Mike Maunder's feature on the upcoming reunion for St. John's Cathedral Boys' School. Although Mike made something of an appeal or something of an attempt at a balanced approach to the controversy surrounding the place, it's clear from the highlighted quotes and overall tone of the article that he wishes the voice of the institution's supporters to be heard. Quote, joy in life. I think that's what St. John's developed more than anything. End quote, Maunder writes. That is as it should be when you're helping to announce a celebration, a reunion after 25 years of old comrades. I truly rejoice for those for whom St. John's experience was positive, and I'm glad that there are such people. But there's another voice just as valid. I think the celebrants and everyone else interested in the place should hear. It's the voice of those for whom St. John's was a prison of body, mind, and spirit, who came out of that place not celebrating the joy of life, quote unquote, but desperate to survive its pain. The human mind has a tremendous faculty to preserve the happy memories and bury the painful. For those of you for whom the painful memories stay buried, I have a message. Be grateful. You may never have to face the demons of your past. For all those who, for one reason or another, must revisit those times of pain, I wish you well. May your courage not falter, and may you have the strength and support that you need. One size fits all. St. John's was not for everyone. Its mold was one size fits all, singularly lacking in imagination or even simple recognition that boys are different, and what is simple for one can be absolutely soul-destroying for another. The same fire that tempers steel also melts copper and utterly destroys wood. Yet wood and copper are just as valuable to their proper function as steel. The wise differentiate before putting them all to the flame. Some boys flourish, and I say good for them. Some died a little each day. Taken all in all, I have come to believe that St. John's was nothing more than a residential school for middle-class white folks. The premise was essentially the same, the methods very similar. How many times did we hear co-founder Ted Byfield hollering, quote, the trouble with you guys is that you've never lived through a war or depression, end quote, as though the accident of our birth was our fault. Our generation was deeply flawed on account of this. our youth culture evil, and by George, they had the remedy. Contrast our Aboriginal friends being told in their schools that their culture was no good, their language unwanted, and their belief system evil in the sight of God. They too were isolated from their families, required to perform the chores of the institution and attend a strict classroom regime. I remember one day in Guelph, Ontario, in a rented car on a business trip, turning on the radio and suddenly hearing Phil Fontaine talking about the nature of residential school he attended, and my being quite amazed as he described the same thing one might have experienced in St. John's, right down to the pathetic free few hours you might get on a Sunday afternoon to be with your family. So, it's not surprising that some of the results of the two institutions are the same. Alcoholism, depression, drug addiction, and the struggles of many of victims of sexual abuse. Many of the victims of the dark side of St. John's would be just as visible as their native counterparts if it weren't a whole lot easier for someone with white skin to get help or just get by. Alcoholic white men in society can hold a job for years and years. Those, quote, special lessons we learned at St. John's all have proven false, even damaging in my life. Quote, you learn the truth by hoeing potatoes, end quote, is a subject to a rigorous and fast-acting law of diminishing returns. The well of truth here is very shallow. Quote, hard work is its own reward, end quote, can result in wasting one's life in useless pursuits. Quote, live your life as much as possible in the service of others, end quote, sadly omits, if you don't look after yourself and never say no to the demands made of you, you will eventually become miserable and have nothing to offer anyway. Only those who have never truly pushed their limits would ever think of saying, quote, no matter how much energy you put out, reach down within yourself. There will always be more, end quote. The day I reached down for something I'd been told was always be there, that I had been told that would always be there, and that wasn't, was the first day of a long sojourn in hell for me. There were more. In religious studies classes, we were told that our displays of anger as children were the deadly sin of wrath. Our teachers' anger and rages directed at us, though, were for our benefit, quote, our own good, and were, in fact, righteous indignation. We understand the difference. We understand the difference when we are older. We were older, pardon me. What self-serving claptrap. What a convenient way to justify their beatings and abuse and make us feel guilty at our own resulting anger. And all under the careful wrapping of Christian dogma. Ridiculous as it may sound, a part of me waited for the grand day when I would see the difference. It would be obvious milestone of adulthood. It never happened, of course, because it was a lie. That didn't stop me, though, from feeling that somehow I hadn't just quite made it. I just hadn't quite made it. I failed in one of my earliest tests in St. John's. I was a scrawny, weak, undersized 8-year-old in a 25-foot canoe, 25-foot, 2,000-pound Navy cutter rowing from Grand Forks to Winnipeg down the Red River, and I couldn't do the tasks assigned of me. I was punched, ridiculed and sworn at by my crewmates, and absolutely miserable the whole trip. I was a failure, and being a failure was always my greatest fear. It wasn't until many years later that I even wondered who, in their right mind, would send an 8-year-old on such a venture under conditions and requirements that are guaranteed failure. Perhaps it was just an early example in a long line of, quote, exaggerated and pointless challenges, end quote. But at the time, it was my inadequacy, my fault. The next year, the program changed, and the summer activity would be sailing on the Lake of the Woods. Even though I still had to attend St. John's, I was told I could not go on this. I simply wasn't good enough. I was only 8 years old when I first thought that perhaps the best thing for me to do to deal with my perceived inadequacy was to end my own life. 8. I'm going to reread that sentence. I was only 8 years old when I first thought that the best thing for me to do to deal with my perceived inadequacy was to end my own life. And as I was continually confronted with what, for me, were well nigh impossible challenges, pointless or otherwise, that option eventually became a daily question. I learned to deal with it in strange ways. I was so glad when I heard the adage, quote, most men lead lives of quiet desperation, quote. I figured it must be this way for everybody. This was one of the hidden secrets of growing up. Hidden secrets. So I just had to tough it out. It was part of the program. Training program. And you just never said a word. I didn't contemplate my demise all the time. I laughed, I played, I did my work. I kept my desperation quiet. But at least once a day, usually just before I went to sleep, I would mentally measure the distance between myself and my suicide. If I was more than 5 steps ahead, it had been a good day. I did this for 27 years. St. John's for me became a prison, building regularly on the sense of failure already established. I was not good at physical activity. I suffered badly with chest colds, even pneumonia in the wintertime. I was a year younger and considerably smaller than most of my classmates. My survival mechanism and tool to establish myself in the pecking order became nasty, cutting wit, and acid tongue, such a valuable attribute when I first went out into the world and needed to rely on other people just to physically survive. As my prison, St. John's had its share of sadistic guard teachers. Sadistic guard / teachers. Its share of prison survival games, its share of jailhouse humor, its share of quiet but utter and abject misery. There was no choice for me. I had to attend. My parents made that perfectly clear. The first night back from summer before grade 11, I did not know how I could possibly stand another year. I decided I couldn't, and I was going to sneak out of the dormitory that night and never come back. Not just to the school, but to anywhere. Instead, I talked a classmate into sneaking out with me. We talked and smoked in the bush behind the school for many hours. I'm still alive. God bless you, Chris Dobson, wherever you are. When I finally left the school in the middle of grade 12, I was on my own. For years, I was sure that the toughness and quiet desperation that kept me alive at St. John's would continue to do so. I suppose, in a way, they did, even that came close to failure on a couple of occasions. But when I finally fell into the hell I mentioned earlier, and it was a question of getting help or die, I discovered the very things I had counted on for strength were the things that were making such a mess of my life. And I'll lay the cause for them foursquare at the door of St. John's Boys' School and the people who ran it. I, for one, celebrate every time I drive by the old Dynevor School near Selkirk and see that it is now a healing center. A note on the author. Rick Weems is a 47-year-old management consultant north of Winnipeg. This week, RCMP confirmed that they are investigating complaints of sexual assault more than a decade ago involving as many as 7 boys by a teacher at the former school. Now, what they don't mention in this article, well, it does here underneath the picture. I think, oh no, it doesn't. Interesting. Is that Rick Weems is one of the sons of Frank Weems, the founder of the school. And this was his take. And it took him a long time to deal with what he encountered. I'm going to go back through some of your articles. Just give me a moment. I'm actually going to grab a coffee. Grab a coffee, you guys. So I'll just be right back. Still have that picture of that boy in your life, in your mind? Perhaps you when you were young. Perhaps your son. Content responding to Blue Nose. I totally agree with that. This kind of treatment is the pendulum swinging too far the other way. Tara to Nova Scotia citizen, you're right. There has also never been kids with more, okay, and no parents at home, government indoctrination, okay, hypocritical tyranny, says Lights. Creator and his son are spirit, not religious divide, not religion divides come out of her, my people, and do not partake of her sins, church child abuse. Grandma. Hello, Grandma. I feel for these students, says Blue Nose. This is why they didn't have licensed teachers so that they could torture these kids. Becca says, quote, the program, wonder what they were programming the kids to become. Grandma, I'm reading Ridley. A Canadian School by Bradley, Richard Lewis, and Paul E. from Internet Archives. What do you think so far, Grandma? So most people would say, when you think of boarding school, you think of a certain thing, right? And New Boys does it's only they only let the very insular school, extremely insular community, quote unquote. Ted Byfield was, for those of you who don't know, was very involved, heavy in media. So he had a lot of friends, and he was also heavily political. Now, thank you for continuing to chat and pass along your observations. I'm going to read a passage from a book. It's very interesting how all of this is coming to pass, but it's because it needs to. And this is something that is not spoken about. Is one of the biggest taboos in society is boys. And boarding schools are a system, and that system, many of the people in very influential and powerful positions in this world are a product of boarding schools. And this is important to note. If you go back through, individual leaders in our world, companies and things like that, many of them you will find have gone to boarding schools. of one ilk or another. Obviously, St. John's is a very different type of school than most people could, certainly that they would think of off the top of their heads. And I would say those who went to St. John's could ever possibly even begin to comprehend. And I'm not using hyperbole there. It is a very, very different world. But what I'm talking about is, in general here, is the system. The system and those people that are training. Now, there are people that this worked very well for. Men, boys. But there are those that it hurt in a lot of ways. So the book I'm going to read from, and I encourage you to go and buy, in fact, because it gives you a perspective, and that's why I'm attempting to share some of this, because and that's what I was thinking this morning I should call this video, funnily enough, because the name of this book is perfect. It's perfect. A very private school. Because most people don't understand that this is a lot of what runs your world. Right? And it is expected. Those of you who know me for some time now know, I guess to some extent, right? My background, as in my familial background. And those are the type of people that I hate these kinds of discussions, but how do you say that? It is a system that is thank you for that. It is a system that is generational, and it's one that there's very little insight to in the general world, is the training. Because most people haven't had, I don't know how you want me to phrase that, the opportunity to go to boarding school that's not really of their means, or I'm trying to navigate this one correctly. So it's something that is very, it's an elite club, maybe you could say, I guess. And You are there's a lot of expectations that you will fall into certain positions, and there is an old boys club that you belong to, and it's a club that some others don't belong to, but many people that belong to that club, again, it's a, as it says, a very private school, and that's a euphemism. It's like a phone book, you know. You think of that lady of that broadcast that I put out, right? And she said how these boys who speak out will never become part of a good club. They will never go into politics. I believe somebody actually refreshed my memory the other day and said to me that she says you will never become prime minister, and you will not lead companies because there's an expectation. But I think it's important that some light be shed, because there's a line. A lot of people think something over there might be easier, or maybe that those problems are very quiet. They're kept very quiet on purpose. But I think those days have to stop, because we're all just people, right? And there's a lot of kind of, it doesn't occur in my backyard type thing. It's over there. And that's, in fact, not so. And the product that results can be many different things. It can be very good, or it can be those people can become very, and again, I don't want to comment on anybody else, but there are often people who are abused, grow up to be abusers. Most people are very familiar with that. And, I would say that can go to two extremes. And that side of the world is never really talked about. A little bit here and there, Anyway, I would encourage you, and again, I think it's God has a plan. So the release of this book, because this is something, obviously, that I and many others, a road that we have traveled for, and many people before, for a long time. So the fact that this book comes out now is not an accident. So those of you who aren't familiar with who Charles Spencer is Lady Diana's younger brother. So I'm going to read you, I hope he doesn't mind, I think he would, the preface, which was very hard for me to get through. I'm going to grab a coffee, so please feel free to grab yourself one, and then I'll read this, and then we'll call it a day. I'm getting comments sometimes that I go on too long. And there is an investigation here. It's a very interesting investigation. I think it goes some very interesting places. And I've kind of started to lay out the pieces as I'm going along here. But this is to give you a personal perspective. And as I said, there are some East Coast ties here, which will come up in the particular investigation that I want to share with you guys. So you guys can do you can help a lot. And I think you may find it very interesting. Even those of you who have not been to boarding school, or, it can give you a different perspective. So give me one moment and I will be back. Okay. I should put something fancy on the screen or something. Rather than looking at somebody just reading. Oh my. Thank you for your wonderful message. You. I'll read the book jacket here. 8 years of age, Charles Spencer was sent away to one of England's most exclusive boarding schools. In this courageous and beautifully written memoir, Spencer offers a clear first-hand account of the strange secrets of the school and the culture of cruelty and abuse he experienced in his 5 years there as a pupil. Drawing on the memoirs of his schoolboy contemporaries, as well as his own letters and diaries from the time, the book is Spencer's attempt to come to terms with the deep emotional scars inflicted upon him. Spencer reflects on the misery, hopelessness, and abandonment he felt at age 8, viscerally describing the intense pain of homesickness, the vicious brutality of a boys' school in the 1970s, and the appalling inescapability of it all. Inescapability. This book cracks the code of the unpoliced regime that ran the place and provides an important insights into an antiquated boarding school system. It's a system. Training, program, it's a system. He gives vivid portraits of the teachers and other staff placed not an accident. In loco parentis. Revealing their casual cruelties and toxic obsessions. All these years later, Spencer's bafflement at their motivations to inflict such violence on young children is palpable, as is his fury that if he had spoken up, no one would have listened. Apologies if I'm not quite. Simply not enough coffee. Training ground for world leaders into well, it's all part of the system. Andrew, greetings from Berlin. Why this and why now? Personal or a subject deep dive? And this is just the beginning. It's both. It's both. This is it's part of something. It's part of a path I have to travel, and something part of just a little piece of something much, much bigger. People involved in these schools, thank you for joining from Berlin, Andrew. People involved in these schools are sworn to secrecy with threats of everything that you can imagine, even being kicked out of your own family. It is very interesting that this world comes out. Oh, yes, you're referring to, sorry, I can't highlight quotes. One moment. It's probably going to kick me out of here, but I can come back in momentarily. Just give me 1 second. Okay, am I back? I hope I'm back. Somebody can let me know I'm back, then we're good. Claire. Hello, Claire. This day I'm still paying for sins committed against me. Sorry, Linda. It hurts my heart to see you hurting from the crimes against us from the past. Yes, we all have some stories, don't we? Spencers have a house in Washington. I think it's... Okay. Can somebody let me know that I'm back? don't know. I don't know why my comments aren't showing up. This is very weird. You are back. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that, says Andrew Pitt. Grew up in England in the 70s, so you can understand. Okay, yes. The public school system. That's what they call it. That's what they call a public school system, is the boarding school system. It doesn't make a lot of sense to people in North America, but it's because the public pays for it. It's like football, soccer. All right, so preface. This is a look back at how things too often were 50 years ago in the English private educational system. I will take issue that is, but he does say, anyway, sorry, one moment. Madewell Hall, the school at which I boarded from age 8 to 13, was built on a lie common to institutions of its type, on the cock and bull notion that children were better off under its roof, learning to be biddable, influential members of society, rather than living as we should have done, as nature intended, with our families. This book is a blend of chronicle and memoir that's intended to stand as a piece of modern history, a record of a time not so far back when things were quite different for children in these most privileged of English academic settings. There were no emails or mobile phones in the 70s, of course, and we boys at Madewell had no access to a landline. During the 3 annual terms, each of some 12 or 13 weeks, contact with our parents was a Sunday letter home and written under supervision. But it's not just the tools of interaction that were different. Privileged parents back then tended to devote less energy to their children than is expected and considered normal now. The limitations set around communication and the nature of our family relationships back then made abuse possible, indeed, more likely, and hard to detect. Madewell was typical of the boarding schools of its time in being effectively a closed community. It attracted staff who were drawn to this blend of quiet and secrecy. This is written so well. He's getting He's getting attacked in the media because he's, what did they say? I've read some things. A class breaker. We're not supposed to do what we're doing here. Quiet and secrecy. Staff. Some of them welcomed power and status and the ability to cut off the outside world. Many of these adults weren't there for the boys' best interests, but to meet their own darker needs. While abuse in boarding schools is impossible to eradicate owing to the flaws of humankind, we can hope that the modern-day victims have greater recourse to help than what was previously available. Now there is a general understanding of the importance of having those who act in the parents' stead trained and vetted. It's no longer acceptable to subcontract the crucial business of bringing up children to unregulated amateurs with unknown tendencies, as happened in my time. During the years that this book has taken me to contemplate and complete, various of my Madewell contemporaries have re-entered my life. We first knew each other as boys, but have become reacquainted in late middle age. This seems to be a common one too. One of these faces from the past came to visit me a couple of years back on business at my home, Althorpe. We had last seen each other back in 1978. "It's so good to see you," I said, starting gently. I knew from his wife that this kind, quiet man refused to discuss his time as a pupil at Madewell with her or with anyone else. It was a subject that, if raised, made him stare at the floor in silent desolation. My greeting was left hanging as we sat on either side of the fireplace, taking in the changes in each other's appearance. But then I suddenly remembered how much I liked him 4 decades before, and this spurred me to jump in. "I'm writing a book about Madewell. What do you remember most about that place? Do you remember?" He paused before answering, then opened up to me about his experiences and the impact they have had on his life ever since. I jotted down what he said in 10 pages of my notebook as we shared and compared our recollections. When I shared that I had been sexually abused at Madewell, he immediately named the member of staff responsible. "Yes, goodness, you're right. I always knew," he said. "But how?" I replied. We had been friendly as boys, but being in separate years in a rigidly hierarchical place, never confidants. And it's a different world. This is something, there's a term called fagging. As you get older, you have more years, more seniority, you move up the order. So usually you don't associate with those younger. So he said, "I always knew," he said. "How?" "I just did. It was obvious." Then he named others who had been victims of the same predator. 3 I knew about, while the other was a new entry to the preyed upon. It's a proper term. The preyed upon. A dire club whose membership nobody would seek. To my horror, he told me of being sexually assaulted at Madewell 3 times, when at age 9 by someone who was meant to protect him. His assailant threatened him with terrible retribution if he ever told anyone about it. He remembers feeling troubled that other boys within earshot must have heard his struggles as he was overpowered, and that this added a further layer of humiliation to the ghastliness of his violation. His main memory of Madewell, he told me, was of being made to feel worthless every day of his 5 years there. He was badly bullied, particularly by the headmaster. I was petrified of him, he said. He took me to a place inside of myself that I did not want to go. I have never gotten over it, he continued. I don't have anger. I don't want justice, whatever that would be. But I know that my life has never had a chance once I had been so badly scarred by that school. At the end of his harrowing hour, I set down my notebook, declaring that what he had told me was too terrible to be committed to page. I promised that I would never betray his confidences by naming him in this book or by disclosing the breadth or detail of his suffering. At this, he became animated for the first time, and he leaned forward. But someone has to tell our story, he pleaded. So true. Sorry. Damn thing is buzzing. I love tech. I just love tech. Hello, Charlene. Good to see you. Great to see you. Someone has to tell our story, he pleaded. I've had several similar reunions since, with Madewell contemporaries who suffered terribly. 4 years ago, as I arrived to speak at a book festival, a tall, lean man approached me, and his features called to mind someone I had briefly known as a boy. Charles Spencer? He asked, holding out his hand in greeting. You won't recognize me, but it was a very long time ago. Yes, I actually do recognize you, I replied, naming him. We were at Madewell together. He looked surprised. We'd only overlapped at school during my first 10 months there. Tell me, I asked, when you think of Madewell, what's the one word that comes to mind? The one that really sums up the place? He stopped and stared into the distance. Fear, he said. These are grown men. He's much older than I am, I think. He is. Fear. He sniffed, apparently surprised himself at having revealed so much in one stark word. I pushed him. And what was at the root of that fear? He sniffed again, waiting to be beaten yet again, for God knows what. He blinked hard, a successful professional in his 60s, unexpectedly reconnected with the vulnerable child he had been, caught in the tendrils of unfathomable sadistic rituals. Sorry. I've learned of other contemporaries who have died, accompanied to their ends by deeply painful memories of their time at that school. The culmination of all this hurt and damage persuaded me to write this book, my record of what it was like for us as boys to live in a beautiful place under a dark power. It's a gilded cage, and that's what many people don't understand. Even the class system is so, it's not what people think it is, necessarily. I hope that this account might lead to some form of closure for those who, it's clear to me, are still bearing the emotional scars of a regime that was so very harsh and grueling. There were bright spots of happiness and comradeship in those years, and they were celebrated in what follows, too. But there were, despite, not because of, the fundamental nature of that place. But these were despite, not because of, the fundamental nature of that place. Meanwhile, the resilience that such a tough upbringing can impart has been brought at the cost of sensitivity being trampled and sometimes eradicated. I've frequently witnessed deep pain still flickering in the eyes of my Madewell contemporaries. The snarled root of that hurt trails back to not being cherished, encouraged, or valued as we might have been at home, but belittled, scolded, beaten, or, if luckily, merely tolerated. Perhaps you could add a word. This while being molded into end products that were not only damaged, but outmoded. Even back then, others appear to have survived intact. Some have even seemed to enjoyed their time at the school, while acknowledging its severe shortcomings, but many of us left Madewell with demons sewn into the seams of our soul. While writing this story, I have inevitably taken a good look at what I believe is a fascinating aberration, the boarding school system as a whole. It's a fact that many of the leading figures, this is important. It's a fact that many of the leading figures in British public life today, from prime ministers to royalty, have received the privilege of just such a private boarding school education. While some have thrived under benevolent head teachers, others have been wounded by wretched treatment during formative years. Some of this, and this sentence I want you to take careful note of. Some of this poisonous legacy they've unwittingly passed on to society. That is important. It is a very important sentence. Look at your world around you. As Diogenes said in the 4th century BC, the foundation of every state is the education of its youth. If that education system is flawed, the state's foundation will be too. I have to say, without wanting sympathy, but because it's important to know the context of what follows, that it's been an absolutely hellish experience at times. This chronicling of casual cruelty, sexual assault, and other perversions from long ago. As I wrote this book, the crushing migraines that often felled me then returned. This after 40 odd years of welcome absence. They go through a stage, and some do anyway. Seems to, doesn't affect, but it catches them. Many, most. I've also had dozens of made-well nightmares. Fen traps have gone off in my mind as I retrace the footpaths of my early school days. I have come to accept that they have snared part of my psyche forever. The events I describe in the following pages all happened as written, and the character sketches are, I believe, accurate. The reported speech is as near to the truth as I can remember, and certainly conveys the meaning of what was said at the time. I have changed all the boys' names, even though many said they were happy to have their true identities to be used. This is a change, a big change. Me Too? Oh, 2.0. Big time. It's going to come. The boys. I wrote the body of this manuscript from my extremely clear recollections, which were seared into my brain as a child. The psychotherapists I have seen over the decades say that trauma at this age often leads to memories being expunged. But it can go the other way. Recollections can remain with the abused vividly and forever, as they have with me. In addition, I have drawn on contemporaneous sources from my Madewell years, my school reports from each of my 15 terms there, as well as my diaries and my letters home. Clearly, what I endured during the 5 years in one of the most expensive private schools in England during a time of solid political and economic stability is not at all comparable with the terrible suffering of so many other children. Now and in the past, forced to struggle to survive in landscapes of total despair. There is only the most tenuous of links between my privileged experience and the experience of those facing economic adversity and social exclusion. So true. The fence. We aren't as, I don't like to use that term. We're all human. There is a tenuous link between my privileged experience and the experience of those facing economic adversity and social exclusion, that of childhood trauma. I've read avidly about childhood trauma, particularly those elements that are connected to emotional attachment. This area fascinates me because I experienced abandonment before being sent off to Madewell. This was in the mid-60s when I was 2 and my mother left home for a man that she had fallen in love with. Back then, the discipline of a boarding school environment was often thought to provide the stability that a, quote, broken home was believed to be incapable of. But I loved home, and most definitely did not want to leave it, even when it lacked a mother. Being transplanted to a strange and repressive place was the last thing I needed, especially as a child of divorce. As a historian, as a product of the system, and as a man, I am fascinated by what on earth was going on at schools such as the one I attended. Why were my parents blithely sending us away to live with adults and children who were total strangers in a clear rejection of family? Why replace this natural unit with an environment of often marked harshness? There remain 630,000 boarders in 2,500 boarding schools in England now. But few of those institutions would have survived if they had not evolved significantly from the time that I write about. I'm not so sure, but I'm reading his words. If you look at Madewell's website today, you will see that the head of pastoral care, who has a deputy to assist them, the recently appointed headmaster, declared on taking up office, quote, I have been dedicated to education in its fullest sense, to seeing the whole child and their potential and helping them to achieve this. This was not the Madewell that I knew. There was not one person in the structure of that place who had any responsibility for us young children beyond the tight confines of bookwork, discipline, the sports field, hygiene, and nutrition. Remember what the article said? Who gives a hoot about what children think? Our softest nerve endings were crushed by an experience that was irreversibly in its distress. While a small number of boys sadly came from abusive homes and were arguably better off in this harsh place, the rest of us had to learn to live without the comfort and protection of home. What we suffered was not just a separation from all that we knew and loved, but an amputation from it. While this book describes a world of privilege alien to most, I hope that it will resonate with everyone, anywhere, from all walks of life, who was ever made to feel frightened, powerless, and abandoned as a child. From Madewell in the 1970s was meant to serve us as a surrogate home, but it lacked in the most important quality of a home. It was without love. Loco parentis. Okay. Let's go through some of your comments and then I think I need a nap. Maybe. Everyone has, it's just a different thing. But I think it needs to come out. How is Nova doing? She's a good little friend. Thank you, Claire. She's very good company. But not everyone who is a victim is also a perpetrator. But sadly, some of the victims become perpetrators. And I would say, in varying degrees. The damage that results affects so many people, not just the one boy. And there's a lot of issues that but it affects all those. And then, you know, a lot of guilt, worthlessness. Lacking in love. Unemotional. Learning new emotions because they're beaten out of you. They want to teach you how to be a product. You are a product. And they have many ways of teaching. Many ways. Sick ways. And then those people grow up. And you have your phone books. All the old boys. And the old boys from one school are old boys to another school. It's a club. Oh, Adrian. A class breaker? What the fuck is that? Someone who doesn't accept abuse? Yes. Maybe I should replay that. For those of you who didn't watch that. Very interesting what that lady says. Let me see if I can find it. One moment. Oops. Where did I have that? Somebody could teach me one day how to run a computer properly, but I don't think I'm supposed to know that. I think if I learned that, I would fall too far. Where did I put that? Was it this one? Yes, okay. To share audio, share tab or screen. Oh, okay. All right. Share audio. Okay. Work. Okay, so some background here. I'm not familiar with who this lady is, but I believe that she's speaking about Brown. Well, let's see who she talks about. I think it's Brown.
So those words weren't used. No.
Julia Hastings had her son tutored by Douglas Brown and has publicly come forward to defend him.
And I feel so strongly about this because it's such an injustice that men this many years later will, in fact, jeopardize their whole family name, disgrace their family name. Think of it. They will obviously never be able to run for politics. Their names will be in the newspaper. Their kids will never belong to a good club or good school. I mean, and what's it for? It's for money. It's for big bucks. It's for $63 million, I believe, to split.
But there's no question that there was, and you've talked to Douglas Brown about it, there was a relationship of some kind between the boys and Douglas.
Oh, and all of them. He said, how could this happen, with tears in his eyes? You know, how could this happen? These boys loved me. I loved them. I taught them. We had such a mutual, happy arrangement. Everything was cool. I didn't feel that much older than they. We did, we had fun together.
most kids are what? Just, a little bit nervous and cautious about stuff.
This is really spooky for me to watch. This man, I believe I know who it is. And just think about it. He's in a hotel room with CBC. I don't believe that smoking was allowed. And yes, he marches to his own drum. But think about what that woman just said. It's like, she's like, well, you just kind of quietly go along with that. Otherwise, you're not going to be part of the club. Why are you saying anything? Brown, oh, Brown. Oof, okay. And yet, this man chose this life for a piece of a settlement. Listen to this man and think to yourself, is this the way that you'd want to live your life? Because he's lived like this his whole life.
Not everybody's, like the teenagers or the kids like you see in the movies. I mean, the majority of them are just trying to figure it out as you and me, and except they're just that much either more naive or trusting or whatever it is, or looking for an uncle or, a surrogate father or somebody to hang out with.
Not only are there no has just been renewed for another 2-year term. Those involved in the class action suit will have to wait for the courts to decide if UCC did do the right thing, and that wait is a long one. What other elements of your life have been affected?
Not really feel like being social, pulling back from most of society and even whatever the hell's left of it that I run into. My social life consists of people's answering machines, lawyers, and therapists right about now. I just try to do my best to try to protect myself and still be able to walk away with some dignity, even if it's everybody's going, it's okay, you're not responsible. That the fuck means fuck all. You're the one that's got to look at yourself in the mirror.
Because that's another thing you carry around, right? Is the code of silence, and the code of silence results in countless others, many of whom you know, or sorry, actually I'll rephrase that, some of whom you know very well, they're like your brothers, they're your brothers, because it's a family, that get abused. So, and lots of them die. The suicide rate is horrific. The alcoholism and the criminality, the kids, the boys that go off the tracks because they can't handle. They're not built to handle. Boys aren't built to handle what happens in many cases. It's not because they're weak or we're weak. I suppose I need to use that term. I don't like to, but they make you very hard, very unfeeling, but you're still human deep down. And You got a lot of stories and faces that never leave your mind. And the ones you don't know, but you know. Because there's so many after. There's a lot of guilt. And then everybody around gets to have that damaged product, which we become. And then there's a very big code of silence. A lot of powerful people that keep people quiet and come to the defense of some very sick people. And that line, like I said, pay attention to that line. Those people grow up. Some of those boys grow up. Many grow up to have positions of power and influence. And yet they're very damaged. And they've been molded. I'm not condemning everybody or anything like but there's a world there. And I hope that people, that light, the truth, the light, the light needs to be shone. So I played that for you, Adrian, because there's very much a class that says you have to accept it. Just, it's quiet. And many of them have been through it too. So they're just like, they're damaged. And then they this is what we do. Sorry, I'm reciting a line. I did it. You do it. This is what we do. Okay. Grandma. They were exclusive, and in our turn created exclusive establishment of leaders. Coming from heyday of Victorian England, I would say that there's other things behind that. Crazy how this jumped from church to school to social services to House of Parliament, truth known to crown also. Satan's children. The umbrella is wide that covers up these truths, says Dara. RCMP, government, school, church. The tentacles reach every aspect of society. With society. I was sexually abused, not the not so care system. I'm really sorry to hear that. Light, I'm really sorry. You see, and I think that the shame of boys and the stigma and the needs to come off. Like it really does. And there's a very intentional push to allocate, because obviously people are more speaking up more now, and there's been a very active push to say, it's only girls get abused, and again, I'm not taking away from them, but it's a very, sadly, a very different thing. It's just a different, but there's a ton of shame. That goes along with that, and then the boy would never want to speak out. And you've got the system. I don't give up. I don't give it the fear that they require, says his lights. Continuing, I stand in the light, truth, and as a woman, I apologize. I did not understand that you were a woman. I don't stand alone. I stand with my brother. Jesus, my strength, of him and our Creator. Much love, much respect. Never be ashamed or have fear. We are stronger together. This is true. And we are so much more close than we all know. There is evil in this world, true evil. But Satan is the master of deception and lies. He hides in shadows. But light is the truth. Remember, the leaders and people running this world must have been to boarding schools, and this could explain why they doing. It's certainly a big piece. It is a big piece. It's not to say that all leaders or whatever, but it's a cancer. It's funnily, that's a lot of boys describe it as that. And see, it's hard for me to even think, like somebody was saying, you have to say these people are men. But you still think of them as we're boys, right? We're boys. Becoming men, maybe. Sorry, I lost. Oh, goodness. I'm quite behind here, I think. Remember, the leader says blue nose. Running the world have been to boarding school, and this could explain why they've been doing blackmailed into going along with. Well, the secrecy never helps. It is more common, and we need to stand together. All of us, we're united in pains and traumas. We are, and together we are strong. And I really hope that maybe I can reach. I really do hope that. At the very least, at least if I can reach one boy, because I've seen some bad shit, man. And a lot of others have too. And we're siloed, kept away from one another. This is supposed to be the secret. The secret. The very private school. His devotion to when I was led by Holy Spirit to Seamus, I had no computer, just a tablet, so I could never comment. When I watched the first video and what he has done about Nova Scotia, a true friend is hard to come by. His devotion do that heinous crime. This is truly empowering. You've lost me on that part. I see people's pains. I feel people pain. Like I think that's what makes us human, right? We feel, and that's what divides us. And when we don't feel, that's a big problem. That's a big problem. In society, this has been pummeled out of us in general. And for sure in school, they literally then they have lots of other ways, but they beat the fuck out of you until you just get, you have no more emotions. You have no more wants and needs, and you just got to follow the rules. I play the game by the rules, and I just stay within the lines. Somebody very close to me said that. Spooky line. Older, much older. I was very surprised to hear them say something like that. They never say anything. Never say anything. Nobody says anything. Isn't the guilt meant to keep people silent, shame them into secrecy? Absolutely, Adrian, absolutely. And with the boys, it is, again, I'm not trying to say that this doesn't happen elsewhere, but it is a massive problem, a huge problem. So much bigger than people may possibly could know. They provide the leaders, says Grandma, of politics, the church, armed services, civil service, and the law, the ruling caste, British Empire at its height, the old boy network. Yeah. You're either a new boy or you're an old boy, or you're an outsider. There's such a class, a hierarchical system. Strange fellows, Shriner Hospital, secret handshakes, abuse, locked in trunk of car. Hello. Hello. The monsters who do this to kids really don't think they were doing anything wrong. It's not mine to judge. They're going to have to answer one day. But sadly, I know that they have their stories too, but that doesn't excuse. There's I think you can have a certain amount of understanding and to be able to forgive is very important, but it's not ours to, or mine anyways. I can't speak to others. You can tell this man puts on a brave front in order to protect the child who still lives inside of him. Oh, the man. Are you speaking of the man I played, Tara? No problem, Grandma. Just, I find it cathartic and healing to speak to other boys. But there's a lot of, I can't speak to others. I think though he spoke of that, Spencer. I have to read that in doses. Call me weak, but there's a lot of fear. The woman Laurentian eldest teachers aren't supposed to love their students. Hey, Stella. Hello, Stella. Yes. Love their students. Men loving boys. Yuck. And Loco Parentis. The uncle. Oh boy, lots of scary shit here, man. We carry around self-hatred for not speaking up sooner and not protecting others. Sometimes you speak up and it doesn't get listened. Spencer said that too. Who would listen? Or other things. This is why continuous women trafficking is happening. It's absolutely happening. What about boys? Not to be a single fiddle here. I think that's where hopefully I can help other boys. Right? Hello. You're good guys, aren't you? Yes. Say hello to everybody. That's how you got your name. Too nice. They are desensitized in every way possible. I took a stand, says his lights. Yes, you're right, Becca, on the desensitization. I took a stand and they stole my children and used direct energy weapons. Tried to crush the truth. Truth is truth, that's for sure. It's amazing to me that they can operate so blatantly. They don't fear the repercussions. How much of, just a question, how much do you think intelligence has to do with the male boarding school system? Becca, I don't understand. Did you report to somebody in power or above the law? Okay, so sorry, that's locked in trunk of car. Boys are taught not to cry, so they suffer alone with no help. Or you go to therapists who don't really understand. To children. So innocent. Thank you, Locked. I appreciate that. Don't be ashamed to cry, brother. It really heals you. It's like stages, you know. I never said shit to anybody for years. People ask you how you're doing. I'm just like, now I'm forgetting it. It's not weird. My answer, my go-to, oh, I'm still alive. People always thought it was funny, but maybe there was something more to it. But then beyond that, I would never say anything. Then it became, emotions, learning emotions, very new. But thank you. Yes, I think tears are That's just shame, too. They don't fear repercussions, says Tara, because anyone could punish them or in the group. I think that's true. Yep. Look at how they hand out sentences. Do you know how many probation sentences I see for male sex offenders, male on male, men on boys? It's outrageous. This is time and time again. Friends of friends, and I have proof. The act splits the child mind like an eclipse. Behind the nerve endings are connected to the vagus nerve. Third eye is behind a star. Vages represent a beehole, the cube that they worship. Foi. Oh, foi. Oi, yay? Something? That's right. A feeling of others' pain. It was a mass shooting. Yeah. Certain things get seared in your mind, you know. Tara's phone call, that was just horrible. It always will be. But I'm glad because, not glad. I'm glad that I was awake and I picked up the phone. But, you know, everything is for a reason. And I think, you know, in my journey, I needed that to bring me around to look at my own stuff. Lots of things happen. Some very tragic, but it is what it is. I have to. Boys are afraid they will be thought of as gay, emasculating. Oh yeah. It's not Nambla. Oh boy. Okay, behind again here. Nova. Nova. So pretty. To traffic a grown-up man, yes. The children, I can't speak to adults, and I only know my own story. You think that some are MK Ultra. When you grind somebody into the ground, you can rebuild them to exactly the way you want them to be. Soul crushing. That's why I wanted to read some words that people say their own words. And then it's not crazy conspiracy theory. His light. Seamus, you are very brave and stronger than you know. This is why you are here, to stand in truth, and truth is life. I'm learning to accept compliments. This is another new one. So thank you. I just am what God gave me, like us all. Our children are the future, and we've got to save them from the criminals who destroy their minds. Tara, my perpetrator, given 12 weekends in jail. The judge didn't want him to lose his job. It's just so terrible. What is that? No, quit trying to monitor. Luke 17:2. I think maybe that's a good note to end on. Thank you, Nova Scotia 44. I appreciate that. We're all here for each other. And anybody that wants to reach out and talk, I'm here. Because I know everybody's got their own stories, but we've got to not be siloed anymore. It were better for him that a millstone were hanged around his neck and he cast into the sea than that he should offend one of these little ones. Luke 17:2. There is a big change coming. And I will bring what direction I'm going towards down to the East Coast, so stay tuned for that one. And again, anyone that wants to reach out, I'm here. Let us stand together. Thank a compliment as it is an honest observation. Maybe that will help you accept. My God's prayer is with all of those of you who have been hurt. We will get through this. There is a line. If he can take you to it, he can see you through it. That will resonate with somebody, particularly. Thank you, Adrian. It's so good to see you. When Christ knocks on the door of your heart, let him in and he will give you a new heart. God bless you all. There is a storm coming. We will get through it. God bless you all. Thank you for spending the time to listen. And if anybody needs, reach out. God bless you all.